Okay, so I'm going to do a quick video on how to retrofit weather stripping on an old window. Now, I've done a tremendous amount of prepping as far as the window sashes being stripped, repainted, glasses reglazed, all the sashes have been grooved, etc. None of that was done prior to this. There was no weather stripping on these windows. So I just wanted to do that little preface, and I'll be stopping and pausing and stuff like that, trying to explain some stuff as I go through this whole process. But anyways, stay tuned, here we go. Alright, step one is going to be putting the sash pulleys back in, which are these guys right here, and then putting the top piece of weather strip in for the upper sash at the head jamb of the window. We'll flip to time lapse, and then I'll be back to explaining the next step.
Okay, here we are. We are putting in the sash pulleys on the left side of the sash and running the screws in. There's 2 screws per pulley. Alright, we're going to test putting in the last 2 pulleys, and everything went really well here, even though the pulley mortises are very, very tight. Okay, here we are putting in the head weather strip, and I'm measuring it to the cut length, so I'm going to trim it. And once I'm done trimming, I am presetting the holes in the weather strip for the nails, and I just marked the middle section here because I'm putting only a few nails in the head here. And we're kind of situating. It takes a little bit of juggling to hold the weather strip, the nail, and also be able to hammer. So as I finish nailing up, I'm setting all the nails, and then I'll use a pair of pliers to crimp the very ends so that they can overlap with the side weather strips. And I'm testing the sash now to see how it fits, making sure it engages that upper piece. And this is a 36-inch wide window, so it took a little bit of finagling to get that weather strip to seat into the groove correctly.
Alright, so in that first time lapse, you can see I put the top piece of weather stripping in, and then I put the sash up there and kind of tested it out to see how it fit. It's a little, it doesn't quite align correctly, but once you get the sides in, I think that's going to bring everything into alignment. So the next step is going to be to put the left side weather strip on for the upper sash, and I'll also prep the right side piece of weather strip, and I'll proceed with putting all that together, and you should have a functioning upper sash at that point, minus the weights being put in. But before I can secure the right side, because you'll see how I have to put it on the edge of the sash and slip it into place, that you do have to have all the weights hooked up. So hopefully you can hear me over all the traffic. We're on a pretty busy road here. But next time lapse, by the time it's done, we'll have a window sash dangling there at the upper part of the window. So here we go.
So here I'm marking the left side of the weather strip in relationship to where I got to cut it out for the pulley to come through the face of the weather strip. I just did the right side as well. And now I'm trimming the ends so that they're angled, so that they'll overlap correctly. And I'm also cutting out where the sash pulleys come through, and scoring that, and then you'll just bend it back and forth and it snaps off, making a really nice trim. I'm doing it again for the other side. And I file the bottom that's exposed so when the window sash goes up and down, it doesn't rub on that burr that's created from the cut. Again, I'm presetting the nails, and that board that I'm punching on top of has 3-inch marks on it, and so that way I get a consistent spacing on everything. And I'm going both sides of the weather strip, alternating every 3 inches as I go down there. You'll see I'm going back and forth over the tongue of the weather strip. And here I'm filing the back sides of the dimples that I created, because this piece has to slide in, and otherwise it's going to scratch the jamb when it's installed. And here I'm just fitting it, tapping it up tight so it interlocks with the above piece of weather strip, and I'm starting to nail it on. And I just use pliers to hold the nails and then set them up. I just get them started pretty much, and then I'll use a nail set to set the nails. Unfortunately, it's not something you can see very easily from the angle. Now I'm testing the sash to make sure everything slides good, and I think everything worked out pretty good. I'm going ahead, I only had a few nails in it at first to test it out. Now that it's proven, I'll go ahead and set all the nails. That way if there was an error or something and I had to remove it or adjust something, it was much easier to do. Here I'm getting I have a piece of lead on a string that I use to push in over the pulley. I pull it out of the sash weight pocket there at the bottom, and then I'll tie it off to the chain, and now I can pull on that string to pull the chain up through the cavity back there, and that allows me to get the sash chain strung through the pulley. You can see it's outside, and I just put a pin in it to hold it in place so it can't fall back in. And I put a coil, looks like a little spring, and that's what keeps the chain held to the sash. That coil will fit into a hole in the edge of the sash. And again, I'm stringing the other side to pull the chain up. You can see the chain's poking out at the top there a little bit. It's a little bit of coordination, but it works really well. You can see the pin that I put in to keep the chain so that the weight's in the highest position, so I've got all kinds of room to work. And you can see the coil dangling at the bottom of the chain there. That'll fit into the hole. I'm placing that in there. I just use a screwdriver to kind of push it in and recess it in there. I think what you saw there is that I had to deepen the groove where the chain goes, transitions from the coil to the chain. It wasn't going to give me enough clearance for the weather strip groove, so I had to chisel it out. I didn't show that in the video. And basically, you're not able to see it too easily, but I'm pulling the pins out of the chain, so now the window sash is suspended under weight, and you can see that I have the weather strip in place on the right side, and I'm tacking it in place. Unfortunately, you couldn't see how I slipped it into place with the sash there. I'm just putting a couple nails in. I'll end up testing the sash going up and down, and then I'll finish putting the rest of the nails in. Here I'm adjusting that top piece at the top of the sash. I'm bending it a little bit because the top rail of the top sash is not 100% straight. So I'm bending it a little more in other certain places to make it line up easier. And it worked out pretty good. Just putting in the final nails here. And you can see how the nails are still sticking out, and I'll come back and set them with the nail set. And that's just so I don't hit the weather strip with the hammer and put dings or bend anything up.
Alright, so I just got the upper sash, it's all installed, it's ready to go. The next thing to do is to put the parting bead in, which is the strip of wood that's going to go into that channel that looks unpainted between the two pulleys up there. And once I have that in, I need to get, actually I'm lying to you, I've got to get the weights in, get the pocket closed back up that's down here. Let me zoom into that real quick. That hole is where the sash weights go in, and I've got to get that sash weight in and get the cover plate on, or the cover board on, and then I can install the parting bead, which goes in this channel right here. Once that's all done, then I'll be starting in on the lower sash. I'll do the weather strip at the bottom first, and then I got to tweak it so that it comes into alignment with the bottom of the sash, and then do the two sides.
So here again, I'm threading the pulley so that I can install the weights for the lower sash. And that's just pulling the chain up, and then I'll pin it off at the top. I'm just hooking the chain up high so as I work with this weather strip it's not in the way. And I'm putting the sash doors, or sash weight doors, back on, so that'll cover everything up there, that the holes that you saw earlier. And now I'm putting the parting bead in. You can't see it because it clipped me off, but the top there I'm putting the headpiece in first, and I believe it just fits in with a friction fit, and then the bottom one, you get the top set, and then you get the bottom, you flex it, pop the bottom in, and then just work it back and forth until it all seats in there real nicely. That's when I realized I put it on the wrong side. All my paint was facing in instead of out. I'm just using a block there to tap it in place, so it has a little bit of resistance. I'm vacuuming out the windowsill because a little bit of dirt's been generated in the process, and I want to put the next piece down. These are pieces of sliding wood here I use to get a tight fit, and then I measure it to come up with the length. And I mark off that bottom piece of weather stripping, cutting it to length. And I'm setting the nail holes every three inches on both sides of the tongue, because this has to be secured very well so that the you have to bend that tongue to come in alignment because it's sitting on a 7-degree bevel. So that once it's bent correctly, it meets up with the bottom sash very easily. We're working on the weather strip for the left and right sides of the bottom sash, and I just cut a 45 on each end of the tongue so that it seats better. And I am test fitting everything and adjusting that 45 cut that I made so it gets down and seats correctly. And again, on the left side, I'm permanently attaching it. And on the right side, it'll have to be slipped into the groove of the window sash when the window sash is slipped into place and then nailed in. It's the only way to get it in. I'm testing the upper sash going up and down to make sure everything's still good. Here, I brought the chains down so that I can permanently put in the sash. Here you can see I got a 1/4-inch chisel, and I'm just cutting a deeper groove in there so that the chain can be out of the way of the groove for the weather stripping, because they occupy the same space. And I have to get the chain deeper so it doesn't interfere with the tongue of the weather strip. I'm just vacuuming out all the dirt and on the floor so I'm not tracking it all over the place as I work. And I have both chains in. Now I'm taking the pins out to put tension on them. And that'll just go in at an angle and it slips in. It looks like everything's going pretty smooth. And here I'm fastening the right side. Now that's in place, I move the sash out of the way and get the rest of it nailed in.
Okay, now that I have both window sashes installed with the weather stripping, I need to put the outside or the inside sash stop back on, and I also need to put my lock mechanism up here. So that's what I'll do next, and after that it's a done deal. I'm ready for some paint on the inside and we're good to go.
So here I'm putting the sash lock on, and just to note that because of the thickness of the weather strip at the top and bottom of the window, the offset at the check rail is just a little off. And depending on how much play you have in your sash lock, it's not a big deal. But one of my previous windows, they were out of square, and so there's already a significant offset, and I had to pad up part of the sash lock so that it would meet and actually lock in place correctly. Here I'm prepping the head piece of sash stop for the inside, and I just set some nails in it real quick so I'm not juggling that while I'm doing everything. And I'm screwing in the left side right now, and I'm putting a putty knife between the sash stop and the window sash in an attempt to give it just a little bit of space between the two for ease, or I don't want to say ease of use, but it makes it slide a little easier because it reduces the amount of friction between the two. And I'm putting the two sides on first, and then I'll slip the head in place, because where the sides stop and finish is where the head needs to be. The head piece is just ornamental. It does not serve any purpose, because the sash will never reach high enough for it to be captured by that top piece of sash stop. And it looks like everything's fairly well done up here. I'm putting the last couple screws in on the left side, and I just pull the sash up so I can make sure I got the right spacing to keep everything consistent. And now I'm setting the nails for the sash stop at the head jamb. And that piece of wood's a spacer, so that I don't keep it consistent at in the center of that stop. I just plunk it up there and push it tight to the parting bead. Alright, I'm back, and the window is done. Let me just stand back here a little bit. Hopefully it doesn't get too dark. It's kind of hard to see in the direct sunlight like that. But yeah, so this is the inside stop here. It actually screwed on. That's what it was originally made for, and it just screws on. And here you can see where I have the weather strip coming up just a little bit from the lower sash, the chain, the parting bead, the upper sash, and then we have the lock, sash latch. And if we go up here, you can see the pulley and chain. Now the chain's all retrofit. Somebody retrofitted most of that at some point in time in the past. The house was built in 1888, and there are sash cords on some of the windows here. Anyways, so we can unlatch, and you can see in here, this is what it looks like on the bottom. And some people might say this is a little excessive on the nails. I don't know. I'm not an expert in this, but in order to bend this to align with the groove in the sash, because this is on like a 7-degree tilt so it sheds water, you have to have both these nails in here. You're just wasting your time. It won't sit still well enough to get that bent. So, and I don't know if you can see there where it folds over itself there in the corner. And then you can also see, I don't know if it'll show up here. Yep. And then you have the check rail weather strip, which surprisingly has gone flawlessly. This is the third window I've done, and it's gone well. And you can see this window over here is done as well, and the window right there. And so that's 3 down and 33 more to go. Thanks for watching.